Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Campus Consortium's EdTalks webinar series. Our presenters for today's session are Whalley, Director, Information Security at Barnard College, Tej Patel, Chief Information Officer at Stevens Institute of Technology, Steve Dutty, Chief Information Officer at the Juilliard School, and Dr. Carl Horvath, President at Campus Consortium. We will take questions at the end of today's presentation. Please enter the questions into the chat box or questions pane in your Zoom control panel. Without further ado, please allow me to present Christine, Tej, Steve, and Dr. Carl Horvath. Over to you, Carl.
Thank you very much, Lily. Much appreciated. And welcome to everyone that has come and attended today's session on Security Operations Center. There's a lot of people out there right now, and we have mostly higher education institutions in attendance, and some higher education vendors that are also with us too. I see that we have Princeton, we have Purdue, we have quite a few higher eds that have attended. Fordham University, Georgia Institute of Technology, MIT, and several others from all across the country. And we also have some international guests with us today for today's EdTalk as well. So welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us. Campus Consortium is a nonprofit consortium of higher education and K through 12 institutions. And the mission of Campus Consortium is to try to get technology into an affordable state for higher education. As we know, it's very expensive. And especially now with COVID that has taxed our higher education system, it's very difficult to provide the support and systems that we have in the past. So the mission of the consortium is to assist schools in, getting the technology they need and keeping it, in terms of support over time. So today we'll be talking about Security Operations Center, which it has been a great concern to many institutions, particularly from the mobile workforce that many institutions have had to create, accessing data and systems remotely. Additionally, all our students have moved online. Many schools are online this fall semester. We're, I guess, not 100% sure what's going to happen in the spring semester. It's always good to have a very strong IT security stance. And this is not just for IT folks. This is for everybody at the institution. Really needs to be concerned about protecting our data and protecting the personal information of our students and the parents, all kinds of information like financial aid information, health-related information. Universities are known for being open as opposed to, a lot of corporations which lock down their systems. So even more important to monitor and keep after your IT security and compliance. Really can't do that just during the day, 8 to 9 to 5. We have to do that all night. We have to do that all weekend. And when there is an issue, we really have to make sure it's mitigated. So here's a little bit about what is a Security Operations Center. And basically consists of not just software and licensing for protecting your environment, but it really consists of a team of experts that are working to prevent, detect, analyze, respond to cybersecurity threats at your institution. And I know a lot of the institutions where I was a CIO in the past, oftentimes, even recently, there was not typically dedicated staff for IT security. And so I would go and create those positions, create those processes and procedures within IT. But Typically, it's been one person or two people to start the group, and that those people can't work round the clock. What a service does, which is what we're talking about, a SOC, a Security Operations Center, is it's there around the clock. And so you can see like the cost there for 24/7 in-house SOC, which many of us, we pay this for some of our most expensive licensing bills for our student information systems, those kinds of numbers there, 220 to 240,000. But if you don't, create this in-house and pay the staff, pay for the software, pay for the systems, pay for the benefits for the staff, then you're better off going with outsourced solutions. And a Security Operations Center has all those tools that you need and monitors your environment, constantly, and alerts you when there is a issue and can mitigate that issue typically. So SOC really does protect your environment. And a SOC system will typically have that training and certification of the staff. And that's another thing is, I put staff into IT security positions in my universities, but they all had to be trained and they had to stay on top of their training, which, is important. So you're ready and prepared to deal with the new threats that emerge every day. It's also Security Operations Center will monitor your network as well. So it's an assist to your IT infrastructure team. And also we know that we have to protect our network on the outside from people getting in. And we also have to protect our network for people inside, maybe clicking on inappropriate email that can cause problems from the inside out. So very important that we're monitoring our network from all sides. Here's a sample of a Security Operations Center system. This is an actual dashboard for a system. You can see around the circle there, all of the important parts that a Security Operations Center, really will help support a university with. An incident response. What do you do when a faculty member clicks on an email or a staff member inadvertently and they launch a ransomware in-house? You have to step up and deal with that and try to eliminate that threat. And what do you do after that if it goes too far? You really need the support and systems of a plan that you put together, an incident response plan. There's also analytics that can be viewed every day. So the important thing about IT security is getting out in front of your IT security and really monitoring that so it doesn't become an issue, or the issues are small enough that they're easy to mitigate and then you can move on. And that's why having a tool and a system, and a tool isn't just the software, but it's people, it's systems, software, licensing that will be available to you in your institution. Here's one of the, when we talked about getting data about your environment, this is a dashboard, from the tool that we were just looking at. And if you look at this slide, it shows really a holistic view of security incidents, number of critical events, high, medium, and low. What's the severity of the event? It monitors over this particular view. It's around 24-hour time span. And it's consolidated a view of the most critical and important devices in the institution from a security perspective. So you're always getting this big top-down view of your most important systems in an abbreviated version. So you can quickly look at a dashboard like this and make a decision and say, hey, that doesn't look right. Let's take care of this. And so there's the top 5 common weaknesses, the top 5 common vulnerabilities and exposures that are listed that really help you get a handle. And as I said, get out in front of this before it becomes a problem. And our next slide will show another version of that dashboard. And you can see that on this slide, there is a bunch of metrics, charts, graphs, and other reportable information, and reporting is important, but it shows effective security controls on the infrastructure on this slide. And it's also, you can see NIST there, really is dealing with some of the compliance overviews, and you can look at and pull reports on issues like how is your PCI DSS doing? How is your HIPAA doing? How is your GDPR and NIST doing? And that's what these panels will show you at a glance, again, so you can make a decision knowing everything looks really good or we have an issue to resolve. So just the software part is what we were looking at, but the important thing is that it's really a team that makes this work the best. And we'll hear about that from our guest panelists today. Just want to let you know, Campus Consortium is offering SOC as a Service grant at this time, which will be expiring soon, but it is still available out there. And it is an in-kind grant that will assist in specifying and setting up a SOC as a service at your institution. So if you're interested in this and would like to apply, doesn't cost anything to apply for it. We can certainly evaluate your institution, and if you're eligible, then you would be able to receive a grant. Special thanks to our sponsors, and we do have, as I said, we have Oracle here and a bunch of other folks. Google has stopped by, and really appreciate your attendance. We wouldn't be able to do what we do at Campus Consortium without our sponsors and our partners. They are the ones that we work with that really assist us and enable us to provide the support to the higher education community and to some K through 12 communities as well. So shout out to our sponsors today. Thank you for being here. I'd like to introduce our first panelist today, Christine Whalley. Christine is the Director of Information Security at Barnard College and has a splendid work history across various industries, with the most recent emphasis in the pharmaceuticals industry. She's skilled in privacy, law, ITIL, policy development, access management, risk management, malware protection, and e-discovery. And we're happy to have Christine here today to tell us a little bit about her institution and what she's doing for SOC at Barnard College. Christine?
Thanks, Carl. So as Carl said, I am at Barnard College. I've been at Barnard about 2.5 years, almost 3 now, and it seems like time has gone by so quickly. Barnard is a private women's liberal arts college affiliated with Columbia University. So we get the benefits of a small school with lots of privileges, I suppose, that come with being associated with a Tier 1 research university. We are separate IT infrastructures, although Columbia does act as our ISP out to the outside world. We're a small team. We have about 30 full-time employees within the IT department that cover, a range of services from managing the infrastructure to enterprise applications, user services, student computing, project management, and information security. As Carl alluded to in the introduction to SOC, I am a single information security person, the team of one, that rely on the kindness of many. So I work really closely with our infrastructure team to make sure that we've got the right controls in place and that we're able to respond. And as part of that, we outsourced as the college our security operations in 2013. So we've been outsourcing for a while, and we've been continuing to improve that relationship because we really wanted a partnership. What we were finding with our SOC, and I think this is an important element if you're looking at this option, is to make sure they're part of your team. What we've been having was the alerts would get thrown over the fence to our team, and we'd have to try and react, and we really weren't working together. And so we weren't the most efficient we could be. We were averaging at our peak about 10 critical alerts a week. The majority of those were not actually critical alerts for us. some false positives, some things that just really didn't apply to us in the way that they were being alerted to us. And that takes time away from your infrastructure team and others to research that, to understand. So we really wanted to move to something that gave us better visibility, the 24/7, as Carl mentioned, because our team, like many of yours, is really a 9-to-5 kind of shop. We are working on weekends and evenings where necessary, but we're not eyes on glass, as they say, all that time. So having a group that can help us keep an eye on things, let us know when something's going wrong. The other thing we added was being able to incorporate our firewall management. A lot of the alerts we were seeing dealt with perimeter controls, and it really didn't make sense to us to have a SOC tell us about an issue, alert us, and then we would turn around and have to do something in the firewall. We thought it would be much more efficient if that security operations center that's doing the monitoring could also do some of the response, at least at the perimeter level. So we also wanted to partner with a security operations group that could manage that firewall for us and make sure that our perimeter stayed in place. So as we look at the operations center we have in place today, we are using the Oculus ITI solution. It gives us a dashboard similar to what Carl had shown. We're able to have agents on our systems that are monitoring for a variety of vulnerabilities, configuration issues, and so forth, and we get notices of those. But the important thing to us is that the security operations center is leveraging tools and algorithms and so forth on their end, but before any alert is given to us, it really has had a human eyes on to correlate events, to look at commonalities. We're not getting each rule that fires in the system sent our way, because that just is inefficient for everybody. So we've really appreciated the partnership that we've had. It gives us a predictability of cost. And the really nice thing we've been able to do is that up till now, we've been focused on the college managed infrastructure and devices, and we're now starting to branch out and provide security operations coverage for our research areas, our labs, our instructional design areas that haven't been part of the security operations space before. And so it's a really nice service we can offer those parts of the organization. Even though we're not managing those devices, we can help protect them and notify them when there are issues in their space and be available. So I think that's what I really wanted to say about the services themselves. But to give you an idea of how our structure works, is we work with a security operations manager who has that whole facility and analysts available to them. And we meet roughly on a weekly or every other weekly basis between myself and the infrastructure team with our security operations center. Now, that doesn't mean if something happens in between, we're not in touch, but we have sort of this scheduled touch point. And that gives us an opportunity to check on the health of the system. If there are any issues that didn't sort of reach the level of an alert, but something we wanted to follow up on, or something the SOC wanted to talk to us about, it gives us that set aside time to do that. And it really has helped us feel more connected between our security operations center and our infrastructure team in particular, so they become more of a partnership and work more closely together. I think that's all I have on this.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Christine. Very interesting. I did have a question for you, but wanted to ask the audience, the attendees, to participate in this quick poll. Do you have an effective security operations center that helps you gain visibility into threats around the clock? You might want to answer yes, no, or maybe. And just to try to get an understanding of, where do we think people are? I told you my story as, my multiple institutions about where IT security is and how, it really has increased in importance. And Christine, it sounds like you've really made steps to kind of make a lot of improvements, and you're an army of one protecting the university, and sounds like that you're able to kind of leverage that SOC. So I guess the question is, how were you as an army of one before you had the SOC? I mean, what changes were made that, what were you doing? Because I'm sure you were presented with problems, when you were without the SOC. And so what is the biggest change between no SOC and having the SOC for you as a IT security leader?
As I mentioned, Carl, the SOC was in place when I started at Barnard, so I can't
Okay.
really go back and say what it was like before completely, although I do have some of the pain points from my predecessor. And it really meant that either that we didn't have the time to really look at what was going on. We only reacted to the really bad things. And what we're able to do now is sort of stage and look at things and make incremental changes instead of always in a response mode. And so that's really helped us a lot. It lets our team focus much more on what needs to be done now and how to plan for the future instead of always in the fire drill mode. So that's been a great benefit to us.
That's great. Okay, well, let's move on. But first, take a quick look at the poll results. Do you have an effective security operations center that helps you gain visibility into threats around the clock? Looks like 30% of participants do have something. Almost half do not, and I guess about a quarter of folks are kind of working on it, trying to bring something together for. I mean, in terms of IT departments, everybody in IT department always knows security is an issue. We're always thinking about it, whether we're developing an application, whether we're setting up technology infrastructure for the institution. Everybody says, oh, you know what? One thing is we got to do security too. But it's really good to have somebody, Christine, like yourself and the other panelists here, kind of dedicated to making sure that this is a constant, issue that's being attended to. So thanks for participating in that poll. We'll have a couple more questions a little bit later on in the presentation. But for now, wanted to transition to Tej Patel. Tej is the Chief Information Officer for Stevens Institute of Technology. Tej has over 15 years of experience in managing and providing value and state-of-the-art IT services, enhanced customer satisfaction and management skills while building respect and credibility for all IT services. We know that some IT services people just expect to happen, but it takes a lot of skill and energy to support that. And especially today with the 24/7 requirements, it's not easy. Tej is deeply interested in building and leading IT organizations focused on innovation and delivering enhanced services. His domain expertise lies in strategic planning, cloud and mobile computing, IT service management and delivery, technology consulting, among many others. And so without further ado, Tej, please take it away.
Carl, thank you so much. Kristen, wonderful talk, and it's a pleasure to be here. I hope everyone's doing well. I wanted to talk a little bit about Stevens. I'm with Stevens for about 2 months now. It definitely feels like longer than that. But a little bit about Stevens. Stevens is a premier private research university located in Hoboken, New Jersey. And the background, I normally don't use virtual backgrounds, but I wanted to share. It's a beautiful campus sitting right on the Hudson River, looking at the New York skyline. We have about 4 schools. We support approximately 8,500 plus faculty, staff, students. We do conduct a lot of research. The research also sort of expands towards classified data as well. And we offer about 200 plus degrees, certificate programs, and what have you. So why am I here today, right? I do like to call that I'm serving as an accidental CISO for the last 2 months. I'm not a security expert, full disclosure there, right? But when you arrive at an institution and when you look at what's happening, you have to take some steps right away, whether you are an expert or a subject matter expert or not. And this was one of the area of opportunities where I saw when I arrived at Stevens, right? And what Carl displayed in one of the first slide, that entire SOC center, operations center, we were on that journey, actually. We were about to build that physical SOC center on campus, Carl. So, and it was slotted for, I think, a second or third quarter of FY21. And we weren't doing a lot of security monitoring. We didn't have any visibility. The IT team provides more of a centralized service. We do have local tier services as well. So we wanted to make sure that we implement SOC Center very quickly with a smart investment, cost-effective way that allows me some visibility right away in terms of what's happening on campus today, right? And that doesn't include infrastructure only, right? That expands beyond infrastructure. With COVID-19, majority of the workforce are working from home. They are learning remotely, right? What are we doing with those devices that are coming in? So the objectives were mainly to get more visibility, get more reporting, so that the team can work on resolving some of this vulnerability, right? And the second one is spreading more awareness by cybersecurity assessment, whether it's GDPR, and implementing some security awareness training, right? We don't have a CISO at the moment. So a virtual CISO was also needed because, again, as I said, I'm not a CISO, right? So those were some of the objectives that we looked at, and challenges. Obviously, I think both Christine and Carl covered very well, so I'm not going to spend so much time, but it's nice to have a good visibility without any complexity, with simplicity, right? So Carl, can we go to the next slide, please? So at that point, I looked at EduCost, right? That's where I feel like most of us go when we need something. And Oculus IT came highly recommended. Spoke with a lot of folks. I also looked at some of the private firms as well. And it became very clear that these folks do something really good, which is they bring higher ed folks together, and they have figured out that triangle that I always talk about: people, process, and technology, right? And they have created this Oculus ITI platform that sort of interested me the most, right? But more importantly, it was cost effective, right? You're going into a new organization, right? You don't know where the budget is, but yet you want to implement something right away that will restore some trust and build relationship throughout the campus. How do you do that, right? Within 2 months. So the first thing Tej does, we stop the physical SOC implementation project. That would have cost otherwise $1 million. We still have that physical space, by the way. But then we begin to have a conversation with Oculus IT experts around how do we partner, right? Let's talk about this. It's just not about implementing SOC as a service and pass it on to the baton to an external vendor partner and forget about it, right? I think it's a team sport, and you have to play together to make sure that your team feels comfortable and you build solid partnership with a partner who can help you mitigate some of the business risks that you are not aware of. So with that, some of the futures we focused immediately was virtual CISO, 24/7 monitoring, and we also identified some gaps around our GLBA and GDPR cybersecurity assessment as well. Because believe me or not, when it rains, it definitely pours. In my case, it's no different, right? So we had KPMG audit going on, and they were asking all sort of questions around GLBA. I'm like, let's talk about strategy. Let's not talk about GLBA for now, right? But that's when the virtual CISO added tremendous amount of value for me. He's a partner. He is a reliable resource that I can go to when I have questions. So all of a sudden, from not having any security resource, I have an army of security resources that is backing me up, right? So that's the main benefit. Record time, we are 80 to 90%, all of our assets are being added. Our dashboard is not as sophisticated as Christine's or some of the other dashboard you might see, but we are heading in that journey. We are working on the playbooks now, right? But now we are also feeling more comfortable where we will be passing on our firewall management responsibility to Oculus IT as well, to make sure that it's being monitored 24/7. So those are some of the benefits I wanted to share with the group. Next slide, please, Carl. And the solution is slightly different than what Christine went with, right? We added additional services such as a virtual CISO as well as NOC manager, right? So we have a SOC manager. On top of that, we have NOC manager. So our infrastructure team works very closely with the NOC center as well, where they're providing 24/7 monitoring as well, right? The goal is we are all working around the clocks, right? We are working remotely. We are working from anywhere, everywhere. How do we make sure that we find some balance between the security and operations, right? So this was very valuable to me. We have regular weekly meetings that I don't attend, but the team does attend. But I have a weekly touch basis with virtual CISO, where we are talking about some of the strategy, including SOC implementation, GLBA, GDPR assessment. But more importantly, now we are talking about, okay, what are we doing about those faculty, staff, and students that are working remotely, right? Are we offering them next-gen antivirus, right? What are the things that we need to do when it comes to making sure that they are phishing scams aware, right? What can we do to add more insight into those users who are working from home now? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I feel like what we achieved over the last 2 months with Oculus IT's help, it would have been otherwise impossible. And I look forward to an even more increased engaging partnership among the community as we move forward. So I'll stop there, Carl, and I'll answer any questions.
Yes, thank you, Tej. Yes, we are taking questions in the chat pane of Zoom, and we have staff that are gathering questions up. So as soon as we're done, we'll definitely head into answering some questions. Quick poll. If you in the audience would please participate in this one. How confident are you about your organization's capability to detect and respond to advanced threats around the clock? Highly confident, somewhat confident, or not confident? So if you could participate in that. Tej, just a quick question for you. Noted that you did say you had the NOC and the SOC. That's a 24/7 coverage. That sounds incredible. Interesting. How do these two services really kind of work together to strengthen your security stance, along with helping you be able to deal with security and network issues basically anytime, right? 24/7 coverage is what this is?
Absolutely, yes, Carl. And this was something initially when we began this engagement, we were only focused on SOC, right? And during this conversation, we identified gap that some of our resources weren't focused on NOC monitoring, but again, we are a lean team, right? So how do we sort of marry this to engagement and also allow the folks to focus more on partnering with faculty and on the research side rather than just maintaining that 24/7 monitoring operations? So it was, in fact, came highly recommended from the group, and then we explored those services, and then we were able to combine them together. And I don't think it's fully implemented yet, so I can't comment on that. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure that over the next 2 to 3 months, that's where our timeline is. We'll have much better tight integration between SOC and NOC.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the best of both worlds. There's so many, especially after, we've moved to mobile workforce and all our students, and faculty teaching and learning online, having monitoring your network, because there's going to be some systems at your institution, I'm sure, that are not in the cloud, and others that are in the cloud. So maintaining that monitoring and awareness of what network activity is going on is definitely got to be helpful. Here's results of our last poll question. How confident are you about your organization's capability to detect and respond to advanced threats around the clock? Highly confident. About a quarter of our attendees are highly confident. Somewhat confident. We have about half of our attendees there, and then about 30% are just not confident at all. And it's okay to admit that. This is really a place where we're hopefully learning about IT security and ways to deal with it. But just like everything else IT, usually IT is asked to, contain the budget, lower the cost, but you need to hire a CISO. What do? You need a team. One person's not enough. So, kind of working through all these questions and thinking about them now it's always a good thing. As long as you're addressing your IT security issues, you're moving in the right direction. So thank you for participating in that poll. And next presenter is Steve Dutty, Chief Technology Officer for the Juilliard School. And Stephen is an information technology and information security expert with vast experience in building, managing, and implementing information technology and cybersecurity strategies. Most recently, Mr. Dutty served as the CTO for the Juilliard School and led the university through a global IT transformation inclusive of technology modernization, organizational restructuring, and expansion into China. So that sounds like a lot of work, Steve. Could you tell us about the Juilliard School and the good work you've been doing?
Yep, thanks, Carl. So, a little bit about the Juilliard School. We are the world's leading performing arts university. We're located in New York, right by Lincoln Center, and we offer programs in music, dance, drama to about 1,000 or so full-time students, and then we have another few hundred students in our K through 12 and continuing education program, and another 600 to 700 or so staff and faculty members. So relatively small school, and an even smaller IT team and an even smaller information security team. So I think that's a sort of common theme. For about 100 years or so, we've been a single campus located in New York. But I'm sort of excited to say this year we expanded and opened a campus in Tianjin, China, which now moves Juilliard into a global footprint. And what that's sort of done from an information security perspective is raise some of the awareness and the thinking in terms of how we invest in cybersecurity at the most senior levels of the organization. So I'll touch upon that a little bit further. In terms of objectives that I'd like to cover, when I think about cybersecurity at Juilliard, I like to think in terms of security versus convenience, and sort of marry that to a mantra of prevention, detection, and response. So certainly at Juilliard, and I think higher ed in general, sort of has a culture of openness and collaboration, and putting preventative restrictions in place can be difficult. There's certainly sort of must-have preventative measures that are put in place, but if we use sort of passwords as an example, the longer a password is, right, the harder it is to crack. So you can't necessarily go out there and say, hey, let's have everybody use a 30-character password, right? Because that's highly inconvenient for the user, and the user experience will be terrible, right? So my point being, if you cannot always do the preventative measures that you would like, you then have to shift your focus to detection and response, right? So how do you implement detection and response protocols? It's SOC monitoring, right? So you need to have the logs and the information coming from your network and your systems, so that you can effectively detect and respond to anomalous activity that may be happening in your environment. So that drove us to implement, SOC monitoring. And then couple the SOC monitoring with the second objective there, to get better visibility into actual threats that are hitting our network. And in order to do that, you need some form of threat intelligence that you can then link into your logs and your SOC monitoring platform. So those were our two sort of objectives out of the gate. In terms of challenges, like all of us, we have to try to do this on a very limited budget with scarce resources. We don't have a huge team, and then for Juilliard in particular, the China element was an increased factor as well, because historically China, at least the U.S. institutions, has a reputation for being adversarial, potentially. So Obviously, with a physical campus in China, most of the activity is not going to be adversarial. So we needed to have deep visibility into what's happening across the environment so that we can distinguish between what's legitimate traffic and activity across our systems between the two campuses, and where something may be suspicious and requires us to look into a little bit further. So how do we address those challenges? In a couple of ways. So working with Oculus IT, Carl, if you can flip to the next slide, maybe. Yeah, perfect. Working with Oculus IT, we have the Oculus Eye platform monitoring our most critical assets. So it's our ERP and SIS platforms, which are also hosted with Oculus IT. So they have eyes on the glass around the clock on those systems. We also integrated threat intelligence from a service called Darkcubed to help us with that visibility. And what Darkcubed does, they correlate 60 or so threat intelligence feeds and come up with a scoring methodology and a confidence level as to how accurate a particular IP address or location on the internet, whether it's malicious or not. And then based on that threat level or score, you can automate blocking of communication to that traffic from your environment. So in an example there, let's say ransomware, for example, if you have a threat intelligence indicator that shows ransomware, shows an IP address that's being associated with ransomware, the automated block would prevent any endpoint in your network or your environment from communicating to that known bad ransomware location, right? So it will block that activity, and we found that to be, very important from a efficiency perspective. So by blocking out the known bad stuff happening, out on the internet, the Oculus SOC team can be more efficient in terms of focusing on the logs and alerts and events that are meaningful, so that then our team, our small team, can then take appropriate action. Sort of a common theme we've heard from Christine and Tej, it's people, process, and technology, right? And that's absolutely true. So one sort of anecdote in my sort of life before Juilliard, I spent almost a decade with a cybersecurity and digital forensics consulting firm, and in that capacity, I worked on a number of incident response and data breach response cases, many of which were pretty high profile. And sort of when you're in that sort of crisis scenario, and you have a true data breach, to the level of, data that's been exfiltrated, and you may have, caught the eyes of the media, and they want to understand what's happening, and they start to question you. You end up in a scenario where you have lawyers and your board and your public relations firm, your communication teams, your customers, potentially law enforcement, your cyber insurance firm. All these people want to have, they want you to provide updates and information really, really fast, right? So that, they have an understanding of what's happening. And the two worst positions to be in, when you have that kind of scenario are, one, having to tell them that you don't have adequate monitoring and logging to be able to investigate properly what happened, right? And we all face budget constraints and things of that nature, and we ask for the resources to do this kind of stuff. But in the time of a crisis, no one's going to want to hear that the budget was denied, or those kinds of answers. So the SOC as a service offering onboards you to be in a position where you have the appropriate level of logging and monitoring to effectively respond to an incident. The second worst answer, and it may be the worst answer, is if you have some form of logging and monitoring in place. Maybe you have an internal system, but no one's really looking at it. And if you have to go back and tell your leadership team that, yes, we have the information to figure out what happened, and it turns out that the breach happened 6, 9, 12 months ago, right? And you had that information but weren't able to do anything about it. That's where the managed service and the people and process side of the equation really come in. I think Oculus IT does does a great job at bringing that all together so that you are responding to any activity in a timely manner, and you're not in a position where you have to provide that answer to leadership or board or other stakeholders. So then lastly, on the last slide there, sort of illustrates the structure in terms of how we operate and work with the Oculus IT team. It's very similar to Tej and Christine and their structure. Oculus really operates as an extension of the IT team. We have one person dedicated to cybersecurity and really rely on external partners, Oculus being one of the key ones there to help us identify when we really need to investigate into something and figure out what's happening. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Carl.
Great, thanks, Steve. One more poll question for the audience, please, for our attendees. Which of the following best describes the current state of information security management responsibility at your organization? A full-time CISO or Director of Information Security? CIO is responsible, but has at least one dedicated security operations staff. CIO is responsible, no dedicated security operations staff, and none of the above. So I know I certainly have been in these situations in my past institutions, and be interested to hear what other institutions are working through at this time. So if you could participate in our last quick poll question. Wanted to jump back to a quick question, Steve, for you regarding, you said that China was new for your institution. So, in terms of, and I know you've had background and experience in IT security before. So in coming into Juilliard and traditionally having been, a national institution, what changes have you seen, or in terms of the reporting or what you've had to provide through using the SOC systems and the data coming out of that for threats? And are they any different? Are they the same? Or is there a different way of following both your China campus as well as your US campus?
Yep, sure. So, what the visibility and the monitoring has really helped facilitate is we start by sort of blocking things that we know to be bad, right? But then we also want to explicitly allow things that we know to be good activity happening, that we want to have happen, right? So, as we've sort of brought the campus online, we're identifying, where those touch points are, and sort of taking a whitelisting sort of approach, to sort of linking the two campuses so that we have a very clear understanding as to, what we want to, what the legitimate communication is. And that will then help, sort of identify and look at stuff that falls outside of that sort of whitelisting approach, if you will.
Yeah, that did sound like a lot of effort that had to go into, kind of supporting both your, campuses. The other thing is, we've always been monitoring, at my institutions, outside threats on the network, and a lot of times, they come from other countries, and so now you are in another country, in terms of of presence. And so I'm sure it takes additional work and scrutiny to stay on top of all that.
Yeah, that's where, the threat intelligence portion was, important as well, because even putting, the China element aside, Juilliard has about 35% or so of the student population are international, right? So, right. By definition of that, there's going to be a lot of activity coming into the systems from outside the U.S. So being able to know what's good and what's bad was really
right.
important.
Yeah, what's the good stuff? You don't want to stop teaching and learning, or transactions that have to happen. But then at the same time, you have to be very cautious of other activity that is not going to be good. So that's very interesting. Thank you, Steve. And here's the results of our poll question. Which of the following best describes the current state of information security management responsibility at your organization? And so it looks like half the audience has a full-time CISO or director of information security, which is great. And that really do need to have these roles in our institutions. And I think that higher eds and K through 12s are a little bit behind on that compared to some of the other organizations and other sectors who've been pretty aggressive with locking systems down and ensuring they have the expertise to cover that. About 22% of our audience says that the CIO is responsible but has someone dedicated to security operations. About 18% say CIO is responsible, no dedicated security, and then 10% none of the above. There are so many institutions that are behind in terms of just technology in general, trying to get your 8, 9, in some cases 10-year-old desktop and laptop computers to be not that old and turn them over to work on the deferred maintenance for your network, changing switches out and making sure you have a next generation firewall for your institution, among many other things, systems and technology needs that require investment. So IT security until recently hasn't gotten as much attention as it should have in the past, but certainly now we can see people are turning toward that, and definitely is something that is needed. In fact, some institutions are evaluated based on whether they have IT security or not. Parents, students have been evaluating institutions to see how good their IT security stance is. Just like they check their banks or healthcare provider for similar, protections, their data, their finances are all housed inside our university or higher ed systems or education systems as well. So we have to make sure they are strong. So thank you for participating in that poll. And again, just wanted to return to the SOC as a service grant that is available now, and Oculus IT, which you heard about from some of the presenters, is a partner, one of many partners of Campus Consortium, and Campus Consortium does collaborative work with the partners to reduce the costs of these types of services. So if you're interested in an in-kind grant, certainly put in an application, or you can reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you and explain to you all the details about how this would work. So here we are in time for our questions and answers. And I just wanted to start the group out very quickly. And, we do have a few questions. So just a quick answer. And if we don't get to all of the questions, we'll certainly follow up after this. But I did see on every one of those charts that each of you presented that there was student service or a student experience item that was listed in that chart. And so what I'd like to know is, we didn't talk a lot about that. We talked more about the solutions, but could each of you or some of you give me an idea of how it's affected your student experience, or the people that work with the student experience at your institution?
So I'll jump in with sort of one piece there. Something that we set up about a year ago was sort of a walk-in, times we'll identify student machines with we don't issue devices to students, so they're they typically bring your own device, or the student owns the the device, but obviously they're connecting to parts of the network, and we see certain activities. So we do notify students if we see something happening, and offer them to stop by the walk-in desk and have us put an antivirus solution, or take a look at their machine, so that we can mitigate the potential of an issue spreading to to other parts of the world. And I think the reception from students has been pretty positive.
Yeah. I mean, I think our students and and others like parents and others that are involved with the institution are becoming more sophisticated about technology and understanding the importance of IT security. So thank you for that. Just wanted to get to another. We have one or two questions we can quickly get to. Did anybody have any other comments about that last question?
I was just going to add, Carl, that like Steve, we've done the same thing over the years. So we've recently transitioned to Oculus within 2020. But prior to that, we had been monitoring student and guest activity on the network. And while we don't fix their computers because they're not ones we issued, we do provide the walk-in service or now the remote service to help them with malware. And it also led us to make some changes in our network security policy. Up until recently, we were not blocking any outbound traffic. And I'm a huge proponent in that you shouldn't give anything away if you don't have to. And so by watching what was happening with the guest network and the students and in particular and visitors, we were seeing a lot of, we'll call them dirty devices coming on campus with all kinds of scary things on it. And they weren't really harming us as the college infrastructure, but they were putting themselves at risk because they were attaching to command and control systems or keyloggers and things like that. And so we started a process by blocking the outbound traffic as well to known bad locations. I think, Steve, a bit to what you talked about with Dark 3. And so that's really gotten a lot of positive response that we're only protecting them while they're on campus, maybe, but it still gives them something while they're in our care.
Great, thank you for that. We are up against our time. I'm just going to throw out one quick question. Are any components of the org chart that everybody looked at? I think that was very helpful for folks to see how your systems are set up, internal versus the outsourced SOC team. How do internal staff interoperate with the SOC team? And I think some of you answered that question already with, how, basically that's a complement to your organization, and so it prevents you from having to build that within your organization. And so I guess, is there anything that anybody wanted to add about that relationship between your team and the outsourced SOC team?
I'll just add quickly that we have done it through our ticketing system, not as directly integrated as we would like, but we're able to send emails that get ingested into our ticket system and vice versa, so that we're constantly keeping each of the teams up to date on progress or activities that are happening.
And Carl, we are in the process of developing some run books, and that will identify point person on both sides, but also allow a complete overview of the entire end-to-end process in the event if something goes wrong, who and how they will move forward next step.
That's great. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for that feedback. I am going to. We do have a few more questions. I'll send those questions to our panelists, and I know there's one or two that are specific for our panelists, so I'll send those out. We'll get those answered, and then we'll send that out to all the attendees today. I want to thank you very much for attending, panelists, Christine, Tej, Steve. Great talk, very interesting. And as a follow-up, we'll be sharing the slides and recordings of today's session via email. Again, any questions, please contact us at info@campusconsortium.org. And we thank you very much for attending today. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you soon.